Welcome to the Kapital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is Thursday, December 3rd, 2020. Thank you so much for joining me. The title of today's podcast, More Jobless Claims. That is going to be the theme of today's podcast, as it is on every Thursday. Jobless claims, the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, M2 money stock. Yesterday's podcast, a small business pulse check, I liked that podcast, not because of the information that we went over, although it's very informative information. That's why I liked it. It continues to paint a very sad, heartbreaking, and grim picture for small businesses across the board. This is not a surprise to us. This is what we have been witnessing. This is what we have been forecasting for months. We just continue to see it in another survey. Yesterday's survey was some 9,200 small businesses, nearly half of them claiming that they are at risk of closing for good. And of course, those hardest hit by this recession and by the restrictions due to COVID-19 are still on the chopping block. Hospitality, travel, tourism, restaurants, consumer retail, gyms, beauty salons. So check out that podcast if you haven't. Episode 495, Small Biz Pulse Check. It was pretty good, I thought. But the other thing that we talked about yesterday as well was some housing data with respect to delinquencies and foreclosures. Both of those numbers have been moving higher and significantly, especially with respect to the FHA loans. There was obviously some upward movement with respect to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loans, but that's a little bit more under the moratoriums. FHA, however, we're about 11%. 11% of all FHA loans are either delinquent, meaning 3 months past due, or they are in foreclosure. Now, I imagine in tandem with these small business surveys and what we here at the Kapital News have been predicting for months is the unfortunate tsunami of business bankruptcies and insolvencies. And with that, you're going to have massive layoffs. 3M, the huge industrial firm, has just announced that they are going to lay off an additional 2,900 people, about 3% of their workforce. The airlines have made other statements that further jobs are on the chopping block. You can't print jobs, ladies and gentlemen. You can print as much funny money as you want, but you can't print jobs. You can't print your way to solvency. That's not how it works, nor should it. Market forces should work. So if this tsunami of bankruptcies and insolvencies does come to pass next year or thereafter, you're going to see another massive spike in the unemployed. Well, this is going to have knock-on effects for the real estate market, right? And some other data that came out yesterday as well was that home prices have hit a new all-time high. So typically, when you're in recession, and typically when you start to see a lot of people losing their jobs, what is reasonable to assume and to expect with respect to the housing market is for prices to drop. It doesn't mean they have to be significant declines like we witnessed during the great financial crisis and the subprime crisis. It doesn't have to be that significant, but at least some downward pressure on prices. That has not been the case. Now, we can say, well, some of that was a knee-jerk reaction, people getting out of the cities because everybody's living on top of each other. People can work from home, so now everybody's flocking to the suburbs, etc., etc. Okay, that's only going to play out for so long. And if you have that type of rush for demand for those types of homes, which has been the case, and these sales turn into bidding wars, what these people, these first-time home buyers or new home buyers, are unfortunately likely going to experience is they are going to find themselves underwater when this next round in this serious round of bankruptcies and insolvencies takes hold. So this is just going to continue to be a downward spiral. And the only way it's going to stop is once we hit rock bottom. Very painful. There is no easy solution to what ails us right now. We have kicked the can down the road for too long, for too far and for too long. The chickens are coming home to roost. There's no responsibility, no accountability. Nobody wants to point the finger at the culprit. The Federal Reserve is not going to take responsibility. Politicians are not going to take responsibility in Congress, Republican or Democrat. The White House is not going to take responsibility. Donald Trump, Barack Obama, Bush, it doesn't matter who's in there. They're not going to take responsibility for what they have done and what they're going to continue to do. You understand this? This is why they are rushing and begging, the central banks, are begging their federal governments, wherever they are around the globe, to do more. They know what is coming. The banks know what is coming. Their loan loss reserves, they are building a huge buffer. They know what's coming. They're not lending money to small businesses. Even though emergency facilities have been created within the Fed and through the Nobody Cares Act, they're not giving it to small businesses. They are already too heavily indebted. They're zombie corporations. They're zombie companies. And they know they're not going to get paid back. So they're not giving it to them. We talked yesterday about how much of the PPP loans is going to the top 1%. All of the loans. The top 1% of the loan value accounts for 25% of all loans. And you understand why this is called the Nobody Cares Act. It's out of control. They do it right in front of us. And this is data from the Small Business Administration. This isn't somebody who put this together that has an axe to grind with the government. This is from the Small Business Administration. The hits just keep on coming. Let's get to some market performance, and then we'll go through our typical Thursday data set. So with respect to the dollar index, relatively flat right now in overnight trading at 90.72. That's the dollar index. Nothing too volatile right now on overnight trading, so we'll just leave it at that. With respect to overnight futures trading for the Dow Jones Industrial Average, it is gaining about 0.2%. The S&P 500 is up about 0.3%, as is the same for the NASDAQ 100. Cash trade in Japan is currently down about 0.2%. A mixed bag across the pond today in Europe. Cash trade in Australia is also up about 0.4%. Putting on some gains, WTI is at $46.41 a barrel. Brent is at $49.64, getting close to that 50 handle. Natural gas is at $2.49. Gold and silver, not too much movement today, both holding steady. Gold is at $1,839 an ounce. Silver is at $24.01. And then to round it out, Uncle Sam's 10-year junk note is yielding 0.91%. And then just quickly, the Reserve Bank of India has kept its benchmark repurchase rate at 4% during its November meeting, saying it was maintaining an accommodative stance to support the economy. Of course they are. That's what they're all doing. And the Indian Stock Exchange hits an all-time high. So there you have it, folks. Print the money, stocks go up. It's magic. It's a perpetual money-making machine until it isn't. With respect to the Federal Reserve's balance sheet, we are currently sitting at $7,222 billion, a slight increase from the prior week of about $6 billion, but still slightly below the all-time high that we hit a few weeks ago. And that all-time high was at $7,243 billion. But nonetheless, we are still in a nice uptrend. And boy, oh boy, is it going to go up. Once dingbat Janet Yellen is approved or confirmed to be the next Treasury Secretary, God help us, It's going to be a nasty and massive 1-2 punch with Yellen in Treasury and Jay Powell at the Federal Reserve, of course, with the other monkeys running around at the Fed. But he's the face. This thing is just going to go parabolic. And then his term, Jay Powell, is likely to expire. Well, it is going to expire, I think, in February of 2022. And if things sort of stay the same course, it appears that Lael Brainerd, who was on the board at the Federal Reserve, and she was a contender for the Treasury Secretary position as well, as we had noted, she's likely to become the next chair of the Federal Reserve once Jay Powell, his term expires. So we're likely to have a woman leading the Fed, a woman leading the Treasury Department, and who knows, perhaps a female president at that time with Kamala Harris again, God help us. And this is not anything being sexist. These women don't know what they're doing. This is just a question of incompetence, and there's nothing but incompetence going around, men and women alike. Again, I don't care who or what you are. I don't care. I just want to see what you stand for and what you actually do, what you actually know. And these people don't know anything. So it's going to be a nasty 1-2 punch. With respect to M2 money stock, again making an all-time high, $19,120 billion, an increase of about $12 billion over the prior week, which is at $19,108. So there you have it. These charts just continue to climb higher and higher and higher. This is your money, folks. This is the destruction of our savings. This is the obliteration of your purchasing power. This is why your costs are going to go up. They already have been. They're going to continue to go up. This is why living standards are going to go down. This is why debt levels are going to go up. I mean, you know the routine. They all go hand in hand. This is just a continuation of destruction and devastation. And nobody says a thing. Nobody questions these people. What's the limit? Why are you doing this? When are you going to stop? Why do you keep calling for more? Nobody asks these questions. And there is going to be an upcoming Federal Reserve meeting this month. So we'll see what happens there. And obviously we will cover that. Initial jobless claims for the week ending November 28th came in at 712,000. This was below market expectations, which is good, but it's still extremely high. Still extremely high. Again, for the week ending November 28th, 712,000 was the figure. For the prior week, November 21st, that figure was revised up by 9,000 and is now at 787,000. Okay? Continuing claims for the week ending November 21st. This lags 1 week, 5.5 million. This is a decrease of some 569,000 from the prior week. This has been the trend that we have been witnessing for the past handful of months now, which is a good thing on the surface. Is it in reality? I'm not 100% certain, because a lot of these claims with respect to continued claims are just moving over to the pandemic unemployment assistance, pandemic emergency UC, extended benefits. A lot of distortions out there still. And to some degree, that's by design. But when we take into consideration all persons claiming UI benefits in all programs for the week ending November 14th, regular state, federal employees, newly discharged veterans, pandemic unemployment assistance PUA, pandemic emergency UC, PEUC again, both children of the Nobody Cares Act, extended benefits, state additional benefits, work share, grand total, 20,163,477. If you take that against what the Department of Labor says is the most recent week for used covered employment of some 146.5 million, as the denominator, we're coming out to a unemployment rate of 13.7%, so still nearly double what the Department of Labor tells us is the official unemployment rate at 6.9%. And of course, tomorrow is the first Friday of the month, so we will get the official jobs report tomorrow, and we will discuss that as well. So, for the grand total, that is a decrease from the prior week of 349.6. I'm sorry, 349,633, I should say. So again, right direction, that's what we want to see, but this is December 3rd. These programs are expiring at the end of this month. Some people, depending on the time that they were unemployed, could of course remain unemployed, but they can't claim anything anymore because they've exhausted their benefits. That's the question that remains outstanding. And if you have been unemployed, if you have been jobless for that long, well, that's a chronic problem. This is becoming structural, which is why I've been stating here for months when we go through the jobs report, pay attention to long-term unemployment and permanent job losers. And then, of course, as we all know, if you're really long-term unemployed, meaning for 1 year or longer, you are no longer counted as unemployed, even though you are, in fact, unemployed. You see how they do this? That's why I like to mention the grand total and then do the quick division with respect to the number of employed. And we get 13.7%, just so you know the shenanigans that's going on. And again, it's even worse than that. Okay? And then you still have to take into consideration people who have still yet to receive their benefits and people who are receiving a very small amount. Okay? So how far are they able to spread those dollars? Can they pay the rent? Can they pay the mortgage? Can they pay the utility bill? Can they pay their medical bills, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? Do they have to stay home because they have kids at school and schools aren't open? Okay? There's a lot of stress going on throughout this country. The picture is still greatly distorted. And what happens at the end of this year? Again, there's more BS talk of somehow they're going to come together with another bill. Again, God help us. But what are they going to do? Are they going to extend it? For how long? How much? Where's the money coming from? These are all legitimate questions. Do people care? Or, well, as long as you get your $1,200, sit down and shut up. If I'm getting an extra $600 a week, I'm making more not working than I was working. I'm going to sit down and shut up. That's exactly what they want. How much longer? How much more? What cost? We know, as I've been stating here for the past several podcasts, you look at the usdebtclock.org, you look as to where we would be in 4 years from now, just another presidential election, $48.5 trillion. So clearly, they're going to do more. Okay? They're going to do more. That's how we get to that number. Just maintaining status quo, a couple $100 billion here to extend this for a couple months. Who knows what they're going to come up with? But that $48.5 trillion, we're going to be we're going to be wishing that was the number once we actually get to 2024. Which is going to feel like an eternity from now, because I honestly think that next year is going to be worse than this year because we're going to have to pay for all of this monstrosity. There was no reconstruction or renovation of the foundation. This was further destruction of our foundation. And as I stated months ago in our podcast, Free Was Never So Expensive, check that out. Because everybody's going to learn this the hard way. That sit down and shut up money was not free. Just like any type of debt forgiveness they want to talk about, student debt cancellation, whatever, that ain't going to be free either. There's always strings attached. There is no free lunch. Somebody's always going to pay for it. And mark my words, that will cause a huge political and social situation, because people who've paid off their debts, people who sacrificed to pay off their debts or to save for college, they're going to be feeling like they're suckers. I did the right thing, and now you're just going to forgive somebody $10,000, $25,000, whatever number they come up with. That ain't going to fly. That ain't going to fly. People are going to be in the streets over this. Believe me. And again, how do they pick student loans? Why just student loans? Why not credit cards? Why not mortgages? Why not auto debt, RV debt, boat debt, anything? Why are they picking that one out? Picking winners and losers, just trying anything for political expediency, just trying to favor Curry, get votes, whatever, so they can remain in power to continue screwing over the people. So that's it. I really don't have much more to say, but I do like covering these data points every Thursday, at least, when we can, once a week, just to see the trends. It's good to see that the figure is at 712,000. I mean, from a standpoint of where we were the past couple of weeks, trending higher. So the fact that this number is lower and below market expectations is a good thing. But we're still over 3 times the weekly average that we were experiencing before all of these lockdowns and restrictions took hold. And we were still above where we were during the depths of the great financial crisis. So we are far from out of the woods. And if that tsunami of bankruptcies and insolvencies comes to pass, well, then you know what's going to happen. It's going to get even worse. So buckle up, stay diversified, stay vigilant, and stay with the Kapital News. I am Alex Karitis. Godspeed.